is January 30, 1977, and we're in Lagos. Nigeria's capital city is hosting tens of thousands of people from around the world for FESTAC 77. But on this cold Harmattan morning, our story unfolds in Yaba, on a narrow residential street called Little Road. Something is wrong. Regina Musili has gone missing. Her absence immediately draws concern. Regina is not someone who can simply disappear without setting off alarm bells. For the past 10 years, she has been unwell. She lives under her family's care. She is watched, checked on, and accounted for. As the day progresses, and she remains nowhere to be found, the household descends into panic. Her family members search the streets, markets, bus stops, and motor parks, everywhere a person might wander. They also place missing person notices in local newspapers, but they can't find her. To understand how and why Regina Musili vanished, we have to return to the last decade of her life. Before she went missing, Regina was just a girl, one of several children in the Adeniji household. Those closest to her describe her early years as unremarkable. She grew up, went to school, and entered adulthood like many young Nigerian women of her generation. Regina was a happy teenager when she fell in love, but her boyfriend, Oluedo, soon left for the United Kingdom on a government scholarship while she remained in Nigeria, maintaining the relationship from a distance. Eventually, she found a way to follow him to Britain. It was a heartwarming story of young love, but it didn't live happily ever after. In 1962, she became pregnant, a development that led to her marriage to Olu. As the years passed, the relationship deteriorated, leaving the marriage emotionally fragile and uncertain. After the birth of 2 children, their relationship had essentially ended. In 1965, Olu returned to Nigeria, leaving Regina behind while pregnant with their 3rd child, whom he claimed was not his. Regina found herself isolated, separated from her children, who were now with her mother-in-law, and lacking the support she had expected from marriage. Olu would later describe their time together as a nightmare, admitting that he had been forced into the union by her family's petition to the Agent General in the United Kingdom, who gave him the choice between marriage or losing his scholarship. "We lived together as husband and wife," he said, "but I was not happy. The children were imposed on me by her parents, and I see this as a curse. My private life has been badly disturbed by my association with Regina. She deprived me of the white girl I had in mind to marry." Regina returned to Nigeria in 1967 as a woman whose life had come undone. She came back carrying the physical and emotional toll of her years abroad. Her father observed the changes immediately. She was no longer her usual self, he said. She had lost weight and her memory. I suspected she had developed mental trouble because of the disappointment she suffered from her husband. Her family, observing the changes in personality and mood, sought help through multiple channels. She was admitted to psychiatric facilities in Lagos and Abeokuta, including Yaba Mental Hospital and Aro Psychiatric Hospital. At these institutions, she received some medical attention, but treatment in Nigeria at the time faced significant limitations. Psychiatric facilities were underfunded, understaffed, and focused primarily on short-term stabilization rather than long-term care. When hospitals failed to produce lasting results, her family turned to traditional healers and herbalists. This was not unusual in Nigeria at the time. Families often combined Western medicine with spiritual and herbal treatments, hoping to address both the visible symptoms and perceived spiritual causes of mental illness. This lack of continuity meant Regina received no long-term protection or sustained treatment. Improvement was intermittent. She would stabilize for months only to relapse and require further intervention. By 1977, Regina was a shell of herself. Years of disrupted care, social isolation, and emotional strain would leave her in a position that would soon have devastating consequences. We're back on Little Road Street on January 29, 1977. It is a Saturday night, and Regina insists on sleeping outside in front of the house. Her father tries to persuade her not to, but she remains firm in her choice. Even when her sisters make gentle appeals, she refuses to go inside, and eventually, the household falls silent for the night. When the family wakes up around 6 a.m. on January 30, 1977, Regina is gone. There are no signs of a struggle or clues about where she went. This 35-year-old woman has simply disappeared. A neighbor returning from a trip that day reports that he spotted Regina over 5 kilometers away from Little Road. 2 months later, a relative spots her in Ijora, more than 10 kilometers from home. But none of these reported sightings lead to Regina's return. Months later, her family receives an anonymous letter claiming that she had been kidnapped 3 months after she disappeared. For your information, your daughter was kidnapped at Igobi Motor Park around April 1977. They intend to kidnap your daughter for medicine. They are specialists in the same field, and your daughter has been killed. The letter, while unverified, played into existing fears in Lagos during the 1970s. Reports of kidnappings, ritual practices, and disappearances were widespread, particularly in urban areas. Motor parks, busy and chaotic, were often considered dangerous spaces where vulnerable people, especially women, children, and the mentally ill, could vanish without a trace. Fear of abduction was so common that rumors alone could create panic. So a letter like the one received by the Adenidis, claiming murder for ritualistic purposes, was deeply unsettling. We don't know how Regina Musili's story ends, or whether her family ever found closure. But beyond the fact of her disappearance, her story shines a light on larger social realities in Nigeria during the 1960s and 1970s. Mental illness was deeply stigmatized, and individuals struggling with it often had limited access to consistent care or understanding. Families were left to navigate complex challenges on their own, relying on fragmented medical and traditional systems that offered temporary relief at best. And so, 5 decades later, we return to Yaba, Lagos, to the narrow Little Road Street, where Regina Musili's family last saw her, with a lingering question. Where did she go? And what became of her?